Hello, so here we are again, Self-Care Shorts 2025. This is episode 3, and in this series, for now anyway, at least, I am working through this book, recently published, Pillars of Success for Social Workers. Don't forget though, if you're not a social worker, keep watching, because actually a lot of it is relevant to everybody, but social work being my profession, I feel warm-hearted when I apply this stuff to social workers to help those guys out. But having read some stuff about teachers and stuff, and health professionals, the problems are all the same, and actually anybody trying to exist in this world that we try to exist in today will probably find some of these things helpful. So today's about two sorts of self-care. Two types of self-care. Self-care is essential to our well-being, and I know one of the things that when I talk about self-care, one of the things that I'm often feel compelled to say is that it's not all about you, and I mean that in a nice way. It's not all about you. It's not all about you in the sense that if you are struggling with things, it's not all your fault, if that makes sense. Because you can put the most resilient person, we talked a bit about resilience last time, you can put the most resilient person in a problematic environment and they will not do very well. And the example I often give is, I'm sure we've all got one of them orchids. We've all been bought an orchid before. Maybe the women more than the men, if I can gender that for a moment, but it's probably true. Certainly it's a go-to Mother's Day gift, isn't it? Or it's a kind of, go-to birthday gift, that kind of thing, the orchid. And you'll have bought it, and it'll have a lovely blooming of flowers across the whole stem. And eventually they'll fall off, because that's what happens. They'll fall off. And then after that, you've got this twig that lives in your living room or bedroom or office or wherever you put it, and you wait for it to flower again, and it doesn't. And the reason, some of them do, I know, but the reason it doesn't is it needs a very particular sort of environment. It needs cared for in a very particular sort of way. And if you don't care for it in that particular way, give it the right environment, the right amount of moisture, the right amount of light, then it won't thrive. So that's essential. That it's essential. And it's the same for us. It's the same for us. We have to be in a decent environment. And remember, and I'll come to this in a future little chat. I'm not just talking about work there. Sometimes the environments we live in at home are problematic. Sometimes our friendship groups can be sometimes problematic. Sometimes our workplaces are problematic. So with that caveat, the problem with self-care and the clues in the title is it's all down to you, because nobody can make you do the self-care stuff, and that's the problem with it. So we've got this problem, and one of the problems with it is when you feel least like doing it is probably when you most need it. And there was a study done, it was 2024 I think, or it was published in 2024, a Spanish study that showed the people who need the self-care the most, lo and behold, surprise surprise, are the people that do it the least. And that's problematic, isn't it? So so we need to think on that. If you're not doing any self-care, then you need to ask yourself, are you one of those people who really, really need to be doing self-care? And the problem is, we put it off. We'll do it later. We'll do it at the weekend. We'll do it next weekend. We'll get this year out the way. All that kind of stuff, and we're just constantly waiting. When I get past this bit, I will. And actually, to get past this stuff, this bit, you need to do whatever it is that you think you're going to do. So there's that aspect of it. Self-care, it's all about, you've got to do it. And if the environment is difficult that you're trying to get on in, be that home or work or a bit of both, then you need to figure out how you prioritize your self-care, because you've got to, because you're not going to be fit for purpose as dad or mum or grandparent or social worker or teacher or whatever if you're not doing some self-care. I genuinely mean that, and I know it's difficult. But there are two types of self-care, and that's the thing that we're going to come to here. There are two types of self-care: hedonistic self-care and eudaimonic self-care, and it's really important. It's really important that we differentiate and understand the difference. Because if we can connect the hedonistic self-care strategies that we do to some sort of eudaimonic self-care strategy, the hedonistic self-care strategy will be much more effective. If it's rooted in what gives us purpose, what gives us meaning, it'll be much better. So hedonistic self-care is about seeking immediate pleasure or seeking some sort of comfort or some sort of sensory satisfaction in the moment. So it's about creating some sort of experience that feels good, that gives you some sort of instant relief from stress. You go outside and you look at the trees. You switch on some music and listen to some music. You go out for a walk. You eat a chocolate bar. You drink a glass of wine. Those are pursuits of pleasure, hedonistic self-care. And as you notice there, some of them are good things, some of them are not so good things if done to excess. Nothing wrong with a bit of chocolate, nothing wrong with a bit of wine, but if they then impact on you further down the line in different ways, then we have to kind of think about whether they're good strategies. But they're strategies nevertheless. The problem with hedonistic self-care is the impact of the actions are short-lived, kind of temporary. It activates and indulges our senses in the moment, and we get a quick boost in mood. Of course we do. Of course we do. And I list in the book some of them. Pampering rituals. That long bath. I love a bath. I love a bath with bubbles and candles and all that kind of thing. You know, so you get some physical comfort, the warm water, the candlelight, the smells, the aromas, all that kind of thing. All lovely stuff. Culinary indulgence is I came up with some fancy words for these. You know, you have a decadent dessert. You have some ice cream. You have the whole tub of ice cream. That's aimed at me. For me, or you have a speciality coffee. You have a nice coffee. You've bought some nice coffee. Oh, it's lovely. You know, you cook a meal, or you have a bag of sensations, or whatever. Other crisps are available. You know, then there's entertainment and leisure. You binge watch your favourite TV show, you watch a movie, you go to a concert, you play some computer games, whatever. You escape for the moment. Or maybe a book, you know, old school. You read a book, or maybe you kind of doom scroll through social media. You know, and there's some benefits to that. There are some benefits to that. There's some interesting stuff written by a woman called Gloria Mark, who shows that actually intentional use of social media, it can be okay. You know, or you might go and buy yourself something, spend something, buy a nice cushion to put on your chair or whatever it happens to be. A bit longer, you might get away for the weekend, or do those kind of things. Instant gratification, quick relief, instant relief boosts short-term happiness. But it's, as you know, because you'll have said this, we've all said it, you come back from holiday and you get back to work all invigorated maybe, and by about 10:30 on Monday you're like, well, doesn't feel like I've been on holiday now, because it's short-lived. It doesn't do a great deal for you in the long term. And I remember this quite vividly. I used to be on Twitter before it was musked and became X. Came off that because largely because of that man. But there you go, a whole other thing. And a husband of a social worker was rightly so probably up in arms on Twitter. He was on a proper kind of keyboard rant about the fact that the team manager of this team of social workers had emailed them before the weekend and said, make sure you have some self-care. Well intentioned, I'm sure. Make sure you indulge in some self-care. Maybe bake a cake. And he was rightly so kicking right off about, like, having seen his wife at the end of a tether with all the work and probably bringing work home and doing all those things that we shouldn't be doing. but we do. And as you can imagine, he was like, and baking a cake's going to make any sort of difference to that. Well, it probably would in the moment. In the moment, baking a cake, following the recipe, smelling the cake cook in the oven, it probably would. It would probably be a good thing. And there are lots of things we do like that are good things. But is it gonna get the reports written, get through the caseload, or any of the other things that in life could be kind of problematic for us? Well, no, of course it isn't. Because as soon as we've had our slice of cake with a cup of tea, we're like, right, okay, let's move on now. What's next? So baking a cake is a hedonistic, potentially anyway, depending on whether your baking skills maybe, could be a source of frustration, is a hedonistic self-care strategy. So it's worthy, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not going to generate the sort of long-term flourishing. And I use that word deliberately because eudaimonic self-care is about human flourishing. It comes from the Greek, signifying a state of what they call good spirit. You are good of spirit. Your spirit feels good. And it's an approach to self-care that is not only about momentary pleasure. Those things are all good. But it's about cultivating you. It's about you becoming the best version of yourself. And I like this phrase, the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. Thinking about Maslow's triangle, thinking about, Carl Rogers and their ideas, arriving at this point where you are the best version of yourself that you could possibly be, this self-actualization. And whatever that means, we can debate that. But, being the best version of yourself. And so eudaimonic self-care is different. You're not going to become the best version of yourself by having a glass of wine, or by baking a cake, or by going for a run. Although those things will help, especially the run. The run will help you maybe become the best version of yourself because you will be energized by the run. So what are these eudaimonic self-care strategies? And they're really important, and they fit really well with social work as a profession, any other profession that you would maybe refer to as some sort of calling. But also it's beyond that. It's about pursuing meaningful goals across your life. So dedicating time to work on a passion project, or learn a new skill, or pursue some sort of educational kind of challenge, enhancing yourself, improving yourself. Eudaimonic self-care can be generated through meditation, regular practices where you have to apply yourself to something. So there's a thread here, regular practices where you have to apply yourself to something. So meditation or yoga, where yoga's kind of meditation in motion, I always think, or journaling to help build your emotional inner resilience, to foster your awareness, to cultivate emotional kind of balance over time. Or maybe you volunteer, maybe you engage in the community, maybe you give back something. So it's about kind of putting back into the community, putting into yourself. It's this idea of personal reflection leading to growth. Through, I like the idea of journaling, reflection, that kind of thing. And it's also about developing healthy routines that sustain your physical being and your emotional being, your emotional and cognitive being. So establishing habits that promote long-term health, like regular exercise, like balanced nutrition, good foundational sleep, practices that require discipline. Ranjan Chatterjee talks about exercise being a gateway activity. Because people who exercise, because in order to maybe kind of, run a 5k or walk 10,000 steps a day, or whatever external thing you want to benchmark yourself against, not the best things to benchmark yourself against, but we do. Whatever you're trying kind of to achieve, if you have to establish habits in order to do those things. If you're going to run 5k, you have to establish the habit of running regularly. If you're going to build up your gut biome, you have to build up a regular balanced nutritional intake. All of these kind of things. You have to apply, and mindfulness and meditation, you have to apply yourself to something. You have to apply yourself to something in the long term to see the growth further down the line. That's that thing, isn't it? something about, you know, something about the person who plants the tree knows they'll never sit under it, whatever that saying is. I can't remember it now, you know, but there's something about that. Knowing that you will benefit yourself in the future, even benefit others in the future. So eudaimonic self-care is not about that immediate feel-good factor, but about creating a life that's rich in meaning and aligns with your true values. The first step there is to know what your true values are. What's really important to you? You know, you've got to figure that out first, and we'll come to some of that kind of later. And I really like this. To me, this phrase, if you like, really kind of straddles the two things. There are two ways we need to be happy. We need to be happy in our life and with our life. So happy in your life is about the things that you're doing in the moment. Having a glass of wine, going for a walk in the park, watching a movie. Are you happy with those things? Are you happy in your life? In the things that you're doing, with the people you're doing them with, or with what you're doing on your own? And then are you happy with your life? And that's the eudaimonic self-care side of it. That's the purpose and meaning thing that we'll come to. Are you happy with your life? The direction you're going in. And you'll see that as we get further through these little sessions that I'll talk about the 10-year plan. You've got to know where you're going, to know that you are happy with your life, and to know that you're happy in your life doing this thing in this moment because it works towards your long-term goal and your long-term objective. You know, so we're trying to kind of balance up this short-term immediate pleasure and relief, I suppose, with this long-term growth, developing meaning, developing resilient inner life, and blending these two things together in this happy in your life moment by moment and with your life in the general direction of travel. There you go. Have a think on about that, and I'll see you next time. Take care.